Welcome to this recording where you're going to listen to insightful moments recorded during live coaching sessions with my clients who come from diverse professional backgrounds. And if you like what you hear today, please share it with your friends and colleagues. And remember to hit the subscribe button now and ensure that you never miss any other episode. Thank you. Okay, so internal dialogue is very important for us as leaders or anybody. But when we're wanting to lead other people, we can only lead from who we are and how we treat ourselves. So often we're externally focused, particularly if you're an extrovert, externally focused. It's all about how other people perceive you or how they're going to judge you or if you matter, if you're good enough, all of these thoughts of comparison and hoping, wishing and dreaming. And we're getting ourselves caught up in a realm that we cannot control because it's not our business what other people think, and we can never control other people's thoughts about ourselves, about us. But what we can control is how we respond to it, how we process what we usually call failure, call it feedback instead. It's feedback. Now, it's not easy, and I'm not saying that I'm an expert at it myself, but it's something to work towards. That I can choose it as failure or I can choose it as feedback. So it's giving me some information that I may not have thought about it. Thomas Edison, I believe, tried 10,000 times to create the light. And each time he said, I've worked out one more reason why it doesn't work. So he never gave up. And most of us in the things we really want to do in life, I find we don't give up. But except you can do it with joy or you can do it with suffering. Now, if the internal dialogue is that I failed, I wasn't good enough, and you're being hard on yourself, right? Or taking yourself so too seriously, they say. Right? You create suffering because you're blaming yourself, you're shaming yourself, you're creating guilt. Those three words, and then ultimately causes depression, and you're not productive when you're like that. In fact, your mind is not clear, and it's not going to be in a creative mode because it feels a lack of confidence. You're actually creating for yourself a lack of confidence because of the language, the internal dialogue. So what's important, if we're going to be great leaders, is to demonstrate with our lives first, is these are the things I'm working on. Even if you don't get it perfectly, and it still happens, you get guilty or you feel, you say to yourself, I shouldn't have done that. That's okay, but even just to notice it, to notice yourself do it is the beginning. And it's an activity, it's a task. People say, can I have a task? Well, that is a task. Awareness, looking at it, noticing it without judgment. You do not have to make it mean anything. You don't have to say that was bad. I shouldn't have done that. I should have known better. Oh, me? How many times have people told me to do this? You don't do that because that's shaming yourself. That's having a thought about a thought about a thought. Instead, there it is again. Isn't it interesting? And you see it. And if you can create a gap between that trigger and a response, a gap of what? A gap of reflection. What could have happened instead? What's a more productive thought? What could I say to myself instead? How can I re-look at this, reframe it? How can I see it in a different way? What about if I didn't have a thought? I love that one. Byron Katie's work. What about if I didn't have a thought about this? How would I be? How would I show up? Because the thoughts is what holds us slavery. It's the thoughts, and then on top of it, the meaning we give the thought conditions it again. And that is purely based on beliefs, your internal underlying beliefs. So we can choose to really be reflective of the underlying beliefs, the thoughts we create, the emotions we end up with, and then the feelings, and then the behavior. And it could be our voice tone, it could be our body language. It shows up in our speech. It shows up in how we communicate. And it all comes back to your own internal dialogue. So the inner world is way more important than the external world. Now, who's showing up to the meeting? Who's this person really? Are they confident? But confident in what? Externally confident or internally confident? Do they really believe that even if they say, I don't know the answer, that they're secure? I don't know the answer. I've never thought of that before. Wow, what is that? And not feel guilty that you're supposed to know it. I mean, it is what it is. Even if you had that thought, I'm supposed to know it, and you have that internal dialogue and you're blaming and shaming yourself, feeling really bad that you don't know it and everybody else does and you're supposed to, does it change anything? Not really. So what we need to do is check that internal dialogue by mindfulness. End of the day, maybe reflecting. During the day when you're busy, jot it down on a list and say, I'll be back to you later tonight when we sit down and do reflection or, debriefing yourself. And this is beautiful because in meditation and in mindfulness exercises and contemplation, we slow down and we become the observer of what's going on, of the dialogue, instead of the dialogue doing the dialogue. And it's helpful because this is what ultimately helps us show up with that incredibly powerful executive presence that we all are looking for. And every now and then you see a leader that seems to be okay with things and they're just cool, calm, and you wonder what makes them that way. And I personally, from my research, I think a lot of suffering can change you if you process it properly. That, those weaker parts of us can actually be a strength. Thank you for listening to this recording. I hope it has helped you. Please remember to subscribe to this channel. I'll see you next time.